This show is produced by the Harwood Podcast Network.
Hi, I'm Cindy Harris. We love making this show available to you free of charge. And if you'd like to help us keep it that way, make a contribution to our Karma Jar or become a show sponsor. To learn more, visit our website.
In this episode, we're going to be talking about white balance, and white balance is a really important aspect of photography, but one that many digital camera owners don't understand or use. But it's really worth taking some time to learn about it because it can have a real impact on the shots you take. Now, in order to photograph something, we need to have some light on the subject, and there are many different sources of light, like the sun and different types of light bulbs. Well, different lights have different color tones, and when we're just walking around, we don't generally notice this difference in the color temperature because our eyes adjust automatically for us. So unless the temperature of the light is really extreme, a white sheet of paper is generally going to look white to our eyes. But digital cameras don't have the smarts to make these kind of adjustments automatically, and sometimes we need to tell it how we want it to treat different types of light. And that's why knowing your white balance settings can be a real asset to you. Well, you may have noticed when looking at some of your photographs after you've taken them that at times images can come out with sort of orangish or bluish or yellow casts to them, even though in the moment your eye thought that the scene looked quite normal. Well, the reason for this is that different sources of light have different color temperatures to them, and consequently, not all light is white. Now, when we look at a white object, it appears white because it reflects the full spectrum of light that shines on it. But what if the light that falls on the subject doesn't have the full spectrum? What if, for instance, the light source doesn't have the longer wavelengths and therefore is deficient in the red part of the spectrum? Well, the answer is that the light will then have a slightly blue quality to it, and all the white things will have this blue tint. And also, all the color captured under this light will shift equally towards the blue, and a picture taken under conditions like the second image here will have this blue color cast, and that actually lowers the overall color temperature of the photo. And conversely, if the light source doesn't have the shorter wavelengths, the light will be slightly more yellow or orange, and all the color photographed under that kind of light will be tinted by that yellow or orange cast. When you're photographing outdoors, sunny days can be really, really blue, and early afternoon sun can be more yellow, and then sunrise and sunsets can be really red. But what happens when you photograph indoors? Well, we usually have two kinds of light going on inside. One is fluorescent and one is tungsten. Now, the fluorescent light, that will cast a blue light, and the tungsten or the incandescent light, that will cast a yellow light. So for the cooler light, you're going to have to tell the camera to warm things up, and when you've got a warm light going on, you're going to have to tell the camera to cool it down. And this is why it's a good idea to get to know the white balance settings on your camera. Now, getting to the white balance function on a point and shoot and a digital SLR camera can be different. Usually on a pocket camera, it's found wherever all the other preset functions are listed. And on an SLR, there is sometimes a button that says WB. Now, this is the back of my camera, and you can see down here on the image on the bottom, there's WB. So if I press that, that will take me into the white balance menu. So take the time and try to find how to get into that menu on your camera. And once you're there, these are the kinds of settings that you're going to find. Now, usually the first setting you'll find is AWB, and that stands for Auto White Balance. Now, when your camera is in this mode, it's basically going to make its best guess on a shot-by-shot basis as to what the white balance should be. It's going to look at the surroundings, the natural light, your aperture settings, things like that, and it's going to calculate and set the white balance based on all those factors. Now, for most of us, having it on the auto white balance is fine. It does a pretty good job in some pretty diverse situations. But when you come across some trickier lighting situations, you're going to want to look at some of these other settings. This next setting is the daylight setting, and this is for shooting in direct sunlight when you want to kind of cool the temperature down a little bit. Now, when you're shooting something that is in the shade, that light is generally a lot cooler or has more of a blue cast to it than when you're shooting in direct sunlight. So this mode will help warm it up just a little bit. The cloudy mode generally warms things up a bit more than when you're in the daylight mode. Now, the tungsten setting is a really big one. This mode is usually symbolized by a little light bulb like this and is for shooting indoors under tungsten or incandescent lighting. Now, when you're shooting under a tungsten light, you will know it because your photos look really, really red and really orange. So if you pop the camera into this mode, it's generally going to cool down those colors and make them look a little bit more natural. And this last mode for indoors is called Fluorescent. And when you go into this mode, basically what it does is it compensates for all that cool light that fluorescent lights will put up, and it'll warm up your shots. Now, sometimes you may find yourself having to deal with mixed lighting, and that's like when you're in a scene that's being lit by two different light sources of different temperatures. So for example, your subject may be under a tungsten light, but you have a window which is showing through all this great sunlight. Well, which setting do you put it on? The best thing to do is take a test shot with the different white balance modes and see which looks better, and then go ahead and shoot away. Once you do those test shots, then you can start concentrating on the artistic composition of your photos. Now, before we close, I want to remind you to share your photos by posting them up on Flickr. We have a wonderful Photography Guild group that we'd love to see what work you're doing. If you're into earning badges, send me a photo of either a candlelight photography shot, landscape, seascape, or even silhouette photo you've taken, and I'll send you one of these great badges. Don't forget to join us on Facebook. And as always, if you have any questions or ideas for me, please send me an email. I'll see you next time.